So you just finished up the assignment where you looked at using SOHCAHTOA, sine law, and cosine law. And now we're going to be looking at more word problems. Once we're done with the practice of the word problems, you guys are going to have a test. This will end up being on Thursday. For your test, you'll be able to create a one-page, one-sided cheat sheet. That's where you're going to put all of the formulas you need and anything else you may want to include. That may include this diagram here where it shows you what to use when. Okay, I'm going to leave that up to you. So what would you use to solve for x in each problem? So looking at this first one, we can see that it's a right angle triangle. And because it's a right angle, we can use SOHCAHTOA. Looking at this next one here, there's nothing that identifies it to be a right angle triangle, which means we then need to discover whether we're going to use sine law or cosine law. So remembering with sine law, we're looking for pairs that match up. We're looking for a side that matches with an angle. And for cosine law, we want two sides with the angle in between, or we want the measure of all three sides. So what we notice here is that we have two sides with the angle in between, and that means we're going to use cosine law here. Okay, the next triangle down here, again, it does not identify with the 90-degree angle. We don't have a right angle triangle, so then we are going to be using sine or cosine law. And what we notice here is that we have pairs that match up, a side that matches with the angle, and when we have those pairs, then we can use sine law. Okay, the final one here. We have this triangle, we're given three sides, and we want to know the angle. We don't have pairs to match up here. When we have all three sides, then we can use cosine law. Okay, now looking into the word problems, when you do these, a reminder, you want to draw a diagram of everything that it tells you in the question. That will help you determine what type of triangle you have, as well as the steps you're going to take. So two cyclists leave from the same location with an angle of 63 degrees between their paths. So we have two different paths. The angle between those is 63 degrees. After 3 hours, John traveled 96 kilometers. So this is the starting point. This is where John goes to, and he travels 96 kilometers. And Tom traveled 72 kilometers. So Tom traveling 72 kilometers. How far apart are they to the nearest kilometer? So we want to find how far apart they are, and that's this distance here. So if we look at our triangle, we do not have a 90 degree, which means we have to use sine or cosine law. And if we look, we don't have any pairs, so we're left with cosine law because we do have the two sides with the angle in between them. Okay, so our cosine law is our c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. We're going to put in the values that we have. Okay, so we notice we don't have an a, b, and c, but we can label those. So our side c is the x that we're finding. The angle that corresponds to that is the 63 degrees, so that's the uppercase C. And our other two sides are A and B. Okay, it won't matter which one's which there. The important one is the C value, and it's labeling the angle and the side that's across from it. Okay, so if we now put in all the values we know, C is x, so we have x squared equals, our A is 96 squared, our B is 72, that's squared, minus 2 times 96 times 72 times cosine C, which is 63 degrees. So our x squared. Reminder that in some of your calculators, you'll be able to put all of this step together. I'm going to be going step by step here. So 96 squared (72 squared), and then I'm going to put 63 cos times 2 times 96 times 72. Okay, 6,275.96. Okay, so if we put the 9,216 plus 5,186, or 84, sorry, minus 6,275.96. Okay, so we get 8,124.04. And to get x by itself, that means we bring the square to the other side and we square root. Okay, so the square root of that number. And we want to round to the nearest kilometer, so that 90.13 is going to round to 90 kilometers. Okay. And the last step when we have a word problem is we want a therefore statement. So therefore, they are 90 kilometers apart. Okay. Next question here. A triangular fence garden is to be enclosed by a fence. How much fencing will be required round to the nearest meter? So if we want to know how much fencing, that means we want to find the perimeter of the triangle, and that means we need to know the length of all the sides. So if we look at our diagram here, we have a triangle. We have two angles, they're both 55 degrees. We have one side being 22 meters. We have these tick marks that indicate those are going to be the same length. And we don't have this angle here, but what we do know is that the angles in our triangle need to add to 180. So we can figure out that angle by doing 180 minus 55 minus 55. Okay, that gives us 70 degrees. So we have 70 degrees here. Okay. Now we want to find our sides. So if we want to find a side A, if we look at what we have a length and an angle, and we have an angle matching with the length we want to find. So because we have our two pairs, that means we can use the sine law. So our sine law, A over sine A equals B over sine B. So side A, we don't know. The angle that pairs with that side A is our 55 degrees. So sine 55 equals, with our other pair, our length is the 22 meters. So 22 over sine, and the angle matching with that is the 70 degrees. Sine 70. Okay, to get side A by itself, we want to move this divide by sine 55 to the other side. The opposite of divide is to multiply, so we end up with A equals 22 times sine 55 over sine 70. Okay, in my calculator, I'm putting 55 sine times 22 equals, dividing that by 70 sine equals, and we get 19 meters. Okay, so the question's not only asking for the missing sides, it's asking how much fencing will be required. So we know that both of these sides are 19 meters. So then the amount of fencing is adding those three sides together. So 19 plus 19 plus 22. And that tells us that we need 60 meters of fencing. So therefore statement, our fencing needed is 60 meters. Okay, our last example here. We have two ships set sail from port. Okay, so from port, we have two ships that set sail. We have Alpha and Beta. Alpha is sailing at 12 knots and Beta is sailing at 10 knots. After 3 hours, the ships are 24 nautical miles apart. Okay, so it tells us that ship A and B are 24 nautical miles apart, so we label that. Calculate the angle between the ships at the time they sailed from port. So we want to know what this angle is going to be right here. Round to the nearest degree, and we also know that 1 knot equals 1 nautical mile per hour. Okay, so we noticed in the question we have knots, we have nautical miles, and it also tells us that they are sailing for 3 hours. So if 1 knot is traveling 1 nautical mile in 1 hour, we need to then calculate for 3 hours. So 12 knots is 12 nautical miles in 1 hour. So to find out for 3 hours, we would need to do the 12 knots times the number of hours, which is 3. So we get 36 nautical miles, and beta is 10 knots. We multiply that by the number of hours, and we get 30 nautical miles. So we can put those into our triangle. Okay, and now we take a look at what we have. We have our triangle. We don't see a 90 degrees, so we're going to be using sine or cosine law. What we're given is 3 sides, and we need to find an angle. When we're given 3 sides, that means we can use cosine law, and we are going to use the rearranged equation of that, where we have cos c equals a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. So let's label our sides. Our angle C is what we're trying to find. That's this. The side across from that is our lowercase c. And the other sides we have are A and B. Filling in everything we know into the equation, we don't know our angle, so we keep cosine C equals our A is 30 squared, B is 36, so we have 36 squared, minus C squared, which is 24 squared. And that's over 2 times A, which is 30, times B, which is 36. Okay, I did not leave myself enough room here, so I'm going to put this all into one. Reminder, when you want to get C by itself, you move cos to the other side, and it'll be a cos inverse. So angle C is going to be the cos inverse. Sorry. And in the numerator, we're going to have 30 squared plus 36 squared minus 24 squared. We get 1,620. And in the denominator, we're going to have 2 times 30 times 36, which is 2,160. So the 1,620 divided by 2,160, and you're going to press second or shift to get your cos inverse. And we get an angle of 41 degrees. Okay, last thing, write your therefore statement. So therefore, the angle is 41 degrees at port. Okay, so again, whenever you're given a word problem, write down everything you know from the question. Take it step by step, one sentence at a time. Figure out what type of triangle you have, and then you'll know how to solve from there based on what type of triangle you have. Okay? So if you have not handed in the assignment from Friday to me, make sure you do so. And then we have textbook questions, practice of these word problems. Again, you can make a cheat sheet for the test on Thursday. You'll have a few days to do this, and we will have a review day on Wednesday as well to get you prepared. Let me know if you have any questions.